All right. I hope you all had some great conversations. And so now we're going to do some Q&A. And there is Dr. Elamine. First question, in your opinion, would you share your thoughts of the impact of urban renewal?
Yeah, urban renewal. So my dissertation research is on Black Knoxville. And when I started, I didn't really know exactly where I was going. And I didn't really anticipate that I would be dealing with urban renewal so much, right? But urban renewal quickly rose to be sort of a jump off point for everything now, for all of my understanding of Black Knoxville. One of my participants said to me that urban renewal was the worst thing that happened to Black Knoxville since slavery, right? Like that was the impact. And this person is in their 70s. And saw urban renewal destroy his community in the Bottom, right? The reason why the Bottom is called the Bottom, the space that we founded this year for Black folks in Knoxville, the reason why the Bottom is called the Bottom is because of urban renewal, the impact of urban renewal, right? That destroyed that community. The impact on urban renewal has gone beyond just the destruction of a community, but it destroyed the culture, the economics of the community, churches, businesses, legacy of passing on wealth to the next generation. I mean, it has had such a tremendous, I mean, we still have not seen, I would say, a comeback of the Black community, in my understanding, as far as how urban renewal impacted it, right? So the impact is beyond what we can talk about in this couple of minutes.
How do we accomplish equity and integration in a way that avoids gentrification and the further displacement of Black communities?
That's a great question. And, I think what is key to all of this is that the answers are not necessarily just there sitting and we can just go grab them, right? We have to think about them together and talk about them together and come up with solutions together. And a lot of times, when we move and when a neighborhood becomes all of a sudden sort of catchy or attractive to people, we have to ask why, right? It's important to ask why. It's important to ask, how am I participating in these processes, right? It's important to ask, what is my presence in this place? How does my presence in this place change what's happening here, right? So for example, I like to use schooling as an example, right? Research has shown that when neighborhoods are gentrified, right, not only are people pushed out, right, but communities are created within communities. If we think of Park Ridge, for example, right, Park Ridge used to be part of Park City. The whole area was called Park City. When that area was gentrified, it was changed, right? But not only was the face of the people changed, but even the name, something as simple as the name of this space was changed, right? And that part of that change is to differentiate this space from the rest of this space, right? So it's attractive to live here, right? Because the access to downtown is great, right? But what is my living here? How does that affect the schools in this neighborhood, right? What happens to Vine Middle, right? I remember a few years ago when I was doing research here, people were afraid that Vine Middle might be closed, right? Because of low performance and things like that. Today, people are worried about losing Vine Middle to the influx of white middle-class families into the neighborhood, right? And they might not lose the school physically, but then you see, like I said, a school is created within a school, just as a neighborhood was created within a neighborhood, right? And so your being in the neighborhood, right? We always like to talk about mixed income communities and it affects everybody, but it doesn't always, there's no trickle down effect. It doesn't work that way oftentimes, right? Because like I said, within a school, resources kind of stay within that box, right? White families who have the capital or whatever to advocate for, say, for example, issues in the school board, not a school board, like the PTA, right? It all becomes about what benefits their kids, right? Not necessarily all of the kids in the school. So those are the types of things. So we have to really be critical about ourselves, right? And we have to work with each other to come up with the solutions, right? And it's, again, these things are not always easy. There's not an answer that we can just pick up and run with. But part of having these conversations is so that we can imagine together, so we can think together. So that's a great question, and we can talk about it some more. But it's so layered too.
Yeah. This one kind of builds off of that. Do you have an opinion on magnet schools as an effort to increase diversity in the school system?
Same thing. They don't do it. Oftentimes they don't do it, right? Because what happens is they create a school within a school, right? And so the kids in the magnet program are separated from the kids outside of the magnet program. And so they have access and they get certain things, but it's not for all of the kids in the school, right? And that's one of my biggest issues with charter schools, is that when we create charter schools, and it might be a great charter school, but what happens to the kids that don't get in? What happens to the kids that don't have this great access? In addition to the fact that who pays for the school determines what happens in the school, but also what happens to the kids. If we're gonna change schooling in America, we have to do it for all our kids, right? And especially in Knoxville, we got a lot of work to do here.
Yes. What do you think are the best ways for attendees in the wider community to lift up these communities and neighborhoods?
Can you read that one more time?
What do you think are the best ways for the attendees in the wider communities to lift up these communities and neighborhoods?
Lift up which communities? Black neighborhoods and Black communities?
Yeah, they do not specify, but I imagine.
I think that we need to be working to make sure that our cities are working for everybody in our cities, right? So again, it requires a lot of reflection and where am I participating obliviously, unintentionally or intentionally, right? And am I advocating for the needs of all of the people in Knoxville, or I'm only concerned with my own needs? Am I going to the city council meetings and speaking out against injustices, or, so I think it requires thinking about how can we really advocate for changes that are not just that are going to benefit us, right? And this is not to suggest a colorblind approach, because that is definitely not it. We understand that we have to be intentional and we have to call out race and racism when we see it, because otherwise it goes unseen, right? So I think it's important that that when we see the injustices, we call them out. When we go to the city council meetings and we see things that are not right, that we say something about it, right? That we make our political officials work for us, right? And again, I think there's a lot of changes to be made systematically, but there's also a lot of reflection that people need to do that will encourage them and empower them to push for those changes.
How can we get involved and support your efforts at the Bottom Knox?
Oh, we have lots of work here and need lots of support. We always need financial support, because this is something that I just ran with an idea. It's like I'm dealing with these issues of loss of place and obstacles to place, and the opportunity became available for us to rent this space. And I was like, let's do it. We're going to do it. We're going to figure it out. So we don't have a staff because we don't have the funding to pay staff, right? So that is a major issue. There are a lot of programs that are kind of sitting on pause because we can't realize them without funds to do so. We need walls painted. If you can't donate financially, but you got time, we need thank you cards sent out. We need people to buy books from our bookstore and tell people what we're doing. I mean, there's a ton to be done here. And I'm always, if people want to help, they can always reach out to me. You can email us at thebottomknox@gmail.com. We're always happy for volunteers. We want the word to be out there and let people know what we're doing. And one way that I feel like people have been sort of digesting as a way to support the Bottom in an indirect way is through buying our books. Buy books from us. We have an online site that has a much wider inventory than what is in store. But there's also physical things that people can do, financial support, tell somebody about the Bottom, let us know there's a grant that you know about that we can apply for, all of the things.
Great, and we have a link on the floor plan of the event page to the Bottom Knox.
Awesome.
Do you have any specific tangible ways we can be allies in regards to housing in Knoxville?
In regards to housing?
Yes.
Yeah, I think housing is a major issue. Affordable housing is a major issue in Knoxville, and that's not just for Black community, that's across the board. And I think it's important for us to, again, hold our elected officials accountable, right? Because a lot of times they are the ones that will actually, that can write the policies to make the changes that we need to see, right? And I think we've gotten so caught up in like trying to be a model city and trying to be a, I don't know, competing with Nashville or Asheville or wherever, that we do it at the expense of the people of Knoxville, the people who live here. And I think that we have to hold elected officials accountable. So that is one way that people can be great allies, is to show up at city council meetings. I'm keep saying that because that's where local policies are made, right? Object to things, speak out, call your elected officials, you know, call the mayor and let her know that affordable housing is absolutely needed in our city. I think those are, at this point, being a good ally is holding our political officials accountable. At the local level, we can do that.
How did the railroad impact the development of Mechanicsville?
So I think I would say it's sort of the same impact that it has had on the city in general, right? With steel, we saw railroads, and with railroads, we can move products to and from places, as well as people. People and products can move to and from places in a short amount of time. And so with those railroads, Knoxville was able to become a hub for manufacturing, a wholesale hub, right? Knoxville is in this position where it's connected to a lot of the smaller towns throughout East Tennessee, as well as like Southwestern Virginia or Western North Carolina or Eastern Kentucky, right? So we're kind of in this really cool place that Knoxville sort of connects to all of these places. And with the railroad system, we can bring coal to and from all of these places, but also we can bring products to and from all of these places, and people can move to and from. So we see, like, at the time that the Industrial Revolution is happening, we're also seeing like the Great Migration happening in America, especially for African Americans. So people are moving in droves out of agriculture, out of urban, rural areas, out of oppressive situations, and moving into cities like Knoxville.
Great. We have one last question. Was the HOLC also a U.S. government initiative, or was that more local?
That was a government initiative that came as a part of the New Deal. So those redlining maps, the HOLC led to the creation of redlining maps. And those redlining maps, if you go, and I put the link in the chat, but you can see that there are maps for all over the country. I look at the Knoxville maps a lot, but I was telling another group that I also look at the maps in Atlanta because I grew up in Atlanta. I look at the maps of New York and Chicago. There are maps for everywhere. So it's definitely, it was a federal initiative.
Great. Well, thank you again, Dr. El-Amin. This was so insightful, and I hope all of our participants took something away, and I think we all are walking away more educated. Reminder we invite you to donate to the Bottom Knox. The link is in the floor map, or you can donate via Venmo at the Bottom Knox or Cash App SO Bottom. As we continue to have these uncomfortable but necessary conversations, we're encouraging our attendees to spend some more time on this topic and to participate in the YWCA's 21-day challenge. A call to action is also on the floor mat. Thanks again to our partners and sponsors. We couldn't hold these events without you. And a final thank you to Dr. El-Amin and our speakers. We invite all of our guests to stick around for virtual networking and be on the lookout for our next event in this series scheduled for December 17th.
Thank you all. And I want to just plug one book. If people are wanting to know more about those federal projects, The Color of Law is a great book.
Fantastic. Chat, and we'll make sure people get it.
I sure can.
Great. Thanks.